Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 130 based on novel. So let's start. The terrible pressure of the sky made everyone on the void suddenly change his face. Even those 9-star and half-emperor strong men looked pale at the moment. In the face of the imposing force of a strong man fighting the emperor, none of the people present, except those strong men fighting the emperor, could bear the terrible imposing force of Sun Shao. Under the pressure of this momentum, on the sky, a group of 1.5 powerful emperors immediately couldn't help flying back down. Most people were forced to land under the pressure of this momentum, looked up with fear and looked at Sun Shao above the sky. Fighting the emperor and the strong is really terrible. With this momentum alone, we can easily suppress the 9 stars and half-emperors. The so-called half-emperors are not worth mentioning in front of the real fighting emperors. Bang! The soles of his feet firmly stepped on the collapsed dark void. While Xiao Yang's feet poured with great strength, the body that wanted to fall was also carried up by Xiao Yang. At this moment, even with Xiao Yang, the look on his face is also dignified. Compared with Zhao Xian, Sun Shao is more terrible. Although there is only 1 star gap between the two, the difference between them is like an abyss. A strong man in the middle of the 2-star fighting emperor can easily suppress a 2-star fighting emperor in the early stage, and Sun Shao is a full star distance stronger than Zhao Xian. His strength is not comparable to Zhao Xian at all. Seeing that Xiao Yang had forcibly stabilized his voice under his momentum, Sun Shao's face was surprised. Unexpectedly, under the powerful momentum of his 3-star fighting emperor, Xiao Yang, as a 6-star and half emperor, was able to resist effectively, which was something that the other 9-star and half emperors present could not do. Although Xiao Yang's combat power is far beyond his cultivation level, in the final analysis, Xiao Yang is only a 6-star and a half emperor. Under the terror of the 3-star fighting emperor, he can still stand tenaciously in the void. This is simply incredible. At the same time, on the ground, countless semi-emperor strong people also cast surprised eyes on Xiao Yang at this moment. Who can imagine that a semi-emperor can withstand the powerful momentum and pressure of a fighting emperor strong person? It is not forbidden that the semi-emperor strong people present are suspicious. Is Xiao Yang really just a semi-emperor? Even if you can bear the emperor's momentum and authority, die for me. The tone disdained a cold hum, and Sun Shao's body moved suddenly. The next moment, his body shape had appeared in front of Xiao Yang. This terrible speed also shocked the strong emperors and half of the city again. And then, Sun Shao's face was fierce, and his fighting spirit poured out. With a wave of his big sleeve, he slapped Xiao Yang's chest. At the same time, Xiao Yang saw Sun Shao's terrible blow, and his hair suddenly stood up. A sense of fear was rising rapidly in his heart. At the same time, his mind was also flying. He frantically urged the fighting spirit in the cyclone, so he wanted to fight hard. Facing the strong fighting emperor, especially a fighting emperor with more terrible strength, Xiao Yang didn't dare to be careless at all. In the face of such a strong man, unless he does his best, Xiao Yang will have no chance to survive. But unfortunately, under the pressure of Sun Shao, RAO is based on Xiao Yang. At the moment, the running speed of fighting spirit in his body has obviously slowed down. At present, it is very difficult to make resistance. Damn! Move! Move! Xiao Yang roared wildly in his heart, and his mood quickly became excited. In a pair of golden eyes, there was a trace of scarlet color at the moment. Ha! Xiao Yang, you can't have another chance to backhand in front of the emperor. Ha! Die! Seeing that Xiao Yang was excited and had no power to resist, Sun Shao had a sense of irony in his heart. While laughing, the power on his palm was even more terrible. Boom! At the next moment, the roar of the sky shook the sky. At the same time, a circle of terrible fighting storm centered on Xiao Yang quickly swept in all directions over Hanshi City. The storm was so strong that it destroyed a piece of buildings below like tofu. Under this terrible storm, all the people in the lower city retreated rapidly with fear. However, those affected by the storm also vomited blood and retreated one after another. With a thick breath, they quickly became weak. A moment later, when the people stopped in fear and looked up at the sky, the look on their faces suddenly changed. The scene in front of them was unexpected to all the people in the city. He did it. What's the matter? Does it mean that he wants to compete with clan leader Sun for Xiao Yang? At this moment, everyone in heaven and earth stared at the sky in a daze. The middle-aged man in white who stood in front of Xiao Yang, his face was plain, his mouth was smiling, and was blocking Sun Shao with one hand. White Win. Bang! Bai Ying put a little force on the palm of his hand, and the strength broke out, so he easily repulsed Sun Shao in front of him. Bai Ying remained motionless, while Sun Shao looked gloomy and withdrew from the distance of tens of feet. Then he raised a pair of sharp eyes and stared at Bai Ying opposite. His face was ferocious, snorted coldly, and then said in a fierce voice, "Bai Ying, what do you mean? Do you want to cover up Xiao Yan?" Sun Shao's tone was sharp, and the anger in his words was self-evident. "Ha ha, brother Sun Shao, we have an appointment. If you and I don't do it, I'll give the matter of Xiao Yang to my men. But you've violated the rules." Hearing Sun Shao's words, Bai Ying first flashed a little in his eyes, and then he laughed and smiled at Sun Shao. I don't care so many agreements. Bai Yi has lost. Xiao Yang should be the prey of my Sun family. You'd better get out of the way. Otherwise, don't blame my men for being merciless." Hearing the speech, Sun Shao sneered. His mouth was full of sarcasm at Bai Ying's words. At the same time, he also shouted to let Bai win and retreat. "Ha ha, brother Sun Shao, you are wrong. Although Bai Yi has lost, my Bai family has done something. Compared with your Sun family, there is no one to fight. Even if you give up on your own initiative, in that case, Xiao Yang should belong to my Bai family now." Bai Ying sneered and said in a tone that was not weak. There's so much nonsense. The clan leader doesn't care whether they fight or not. I only know that my Sun family has not given up and caught Xiao Yang. At the same time, they have not lost, but your Bai family has lost. Xiao Yang is my Sun family." His face changed slightly at first. For this, Sun Shao was also angry. His 9-star and half-emperors made him lose face. At the moment, Sun Shao felt ashamed and flustered in his heart. Since clan leader Sun is unreasonable, there's no need to say more. Today, Xiao Yang is already in the bag of my Bai family. I must take him anyway. If clan leader Sun insists on keeping him, you can fight with our clan leader. If you win, Xiao Yang belongs to your Sun family, otherwise, he will belong to my Bai family." Hearing Sun Shao's words, Bai Ying's face suddenly showed a cold color. At the same time, his heart moved, and the fighting spirit in his body surged out at this time. The purple thunder coiled around Bai Ying like a python. The terrible momentum made the void around him tremble. Seeing this scene, the crowd below could not help but be in an uproar. Unexpectedly, the owner of the Bai family was the fighting spirit of Lei attribute. The power of the fighting spirit of the thunder attribute can be called a very domineering existence among all the fighting spirit attributes. Ordinary strong people rarely entangle with the thunder attribute opponents of the same level. After all, the hegemony of thunder attribute is not only reflected in its terrible power, but also its paralyzing effect can greatly affect the war situation. Therefore, under unnecessary circumstances, ordinary strong people rarely fight against such people. Seeing that Bai Ying has raised his fighting spirit, the look on Sun Shao's face can't help changing for a while, but in the depths of his pupils, he can't help passing a faint light. His eyes narrowed, he bit his teeth with hatred, and his body shook. Suddenly, a piece of blue water vapor also rose around Sun Shao. Among the small bubbles formed by those water vapor, it turned out that some small light like earthy yellow flowed continuously. Seeing this scene in the sky, the people below suddenly burst into an uproar again. In contrast, Sun Shao would be a strong fighting emperor with water attribute. They are in the same state. Once they fight, I'm afraid they will win in vain in the end. Although the war between the two has not yet begun, it has been guessed by the onlookers. Sun Shao, I see how you can fight with me." Bai Ying sneered, and his heart moved. The huge thunder python coiled around him gave a harsh roar to Sun Shao. Bai Ying, you underestimate the patriarch." But at this time, Sun Shao's mouth also gave a sarcastic laugh. Immediately, with a big hand, a large amount of water vapor condensed around his body quickly fused and solidified. In the twinkling of an eye, it turned into a slightly viscous yellowish liquid. Seeing this, Bai Ying's eyes were slightly frozen, his eyebrows wrinkled, and he felt a little bad in his heart. Bai Ying, the water rock fighting spirit is that the clan leader spent 9 cattle and 2 tigers to extract and condense from the guy's body with the help of a high-level earth attribute warcraft, and finally successfully integrated into the water rock fighting spirit. The current fighting spirit of the Emperor can just restrain your thunder python. Sun Shao laughed ferociously and showed a disdain on his face. Indeed, in the past, Sun Shao was taken advantage of by Bai Ying in front of him because of his fighting spirit attribute, But now, with this water-rock fighting spirit, it is difficult for Bai Ying to suppress him. This is also one of the reasons why Sun Shuo dared to compete with Bai Ying for Xiao Yang. Hearing Sun Shuo's words, Bai Ying immediately felt a sense of dignity. If so, he and his two fought each other. The result is really hard to say, but... Haha, well, since brother Sun Shuo wants to fight, I deserve you to fight happily, but if you lose the Sun family at that time, you can't blame me. However, the cold laughter from Bai Ying's mouth once again made Sun Shuo nervous again. Although he couldn't tear Bai Ying in front of him, he also knew that it was not so easy to defeat Bai Ying in front of him. Moreover, if he really fought with him, he would be in the lower city. Such a big family that has worked hard for many years is really going to be destroyed. White Win, you beat me with this again. Haha, why, brother Sun Shuo doesn't care about his family. If so, come on. I haven't been able to fight happily for a long time. Just take advantage of today's opportunity to show me how much your strength has increased over the years. Facing Sun Shuo with a ferocious face, Bai Ying sneered. It seemed that he really didn't care. While his words were spitting out, he held a big hand and a purple long gun, and at the same time, he fell into Bai Ying's hand. The tip of the gun pointed directly at Sun Shuo. The sharp tip of the gun reflects a sharp cold light under the package of fighting spirit, which makes people not only feel dangerous secretly. Staring at the long gun in Bai Ying's hand, Sun Shuo's eyes also struggled again and again. Only after the good film was engraved, did he hum with hatred and wave his hand. The viscous fighting spirit condensed on the body surface gradually poured into his body. Okay, this time, even if you win, I cannot do it, but... He said a word of hate. Immediately after that, Sun Shuo's eyes slowly moved down and looked at the semi-imperial strong men on the ground in the city. Now, I'll give you two choices. First, I'll catch Xiao Yang, dead or alive. As long as I catch him, I'll give each of you 2 third-order pills as a reward. Second, you can't do it, but you can't leave Hanshi City today. Stay here forever and let people outside know the end of daring to disobey my Sun family in Hanshi City. Sun Shuo's tone was cold and did not wait for the slightest emotion. At this moment, even for the 9-star and half-emperor strong men of the Sun family, he had no mercy in his heart. As far as Sun Shuo is concerned, his Sun family has lost face today. Second, these 9-star and half-emperors below are the culprits. Coupled with the rising anger in his heart, how can he be kind? Hearing the speech, the strong emperors and a half present immediately complained. At present, Sun Shuo has put the knife on their neck. If he doesn't move, he will die. Of course, although he knows that there will be no good end to fighting with Xiao Yang, he is better than death anyway. At this moment, everyone below unconsciously looked at Xiao Yang above the void, with helplessness, fear and madness in his eyes. After all, corresponding to death, if they can catch Xiao Yang, they will also get a very rich reward. 2 third-order pills, which they can't get at all. If they can get one, the strength of these semi-imperial strongmen present will be improved qualitatively. This has to drive them crazy. After feeling all kinds of eyes from the strong semi-emperors in the world, Xiao Yang's eyes have also recovered calm. After Bai Ying resisted the threat of the fighting emperor, the flow speed of fighting spirit in his body has returned to normal. Now if he starts, Xiao Yang is not afraid of any semi-emperor present. Of course, he doesn't know what a scene it would be if these semi-imperial strong men below started together. With a trace of curiosity and temptation in his heart, Xiao Yang slowly raised his head, but found Bai Ying at the moment. He was looking at him with a smile. This scene surprised Xiao Yang, but then Xiao Yang took a deep breath, and a pair of golden eyes closed slowly. Then the next moment, when his eyes opened, it was quite overbearing, also suddenly spit out from Xiao Yang's mouth. In that case, you can go together. When Xiao Yang's words came out, everyone was stunned between heaven and earth. Then, a pair of eyes full of horror fell on Xiao Yang. At this moment, everyone present was shocked. Even they all doubted their ears. They couldn't think of it anyway. Xiao Yang in front of him can be so rampant that he plans to fight against hundreds of semi-imperial strong men with his own strength. This guy. Is he crazy? Even if his combat power is far better than that of the strong at the same level, it's too big. Hey, there's a good play to see. If a man fights so many semi-imperial strong men at the same time, this boy either really has that strength, or he can only humiliate himself. But if he really blocked these semi-emperors and even defeated them on his own, the name of Xiao Yang will inevitably boil in the whole western regions after today. This war is of great significance to this boy. In the distant void, Several strong fighters stared at Xiao Yang in the field at the moment. Everyone looked different, but from the tone of their voice, they more or less held a suspicious attitude towards Xiao Yang. After all, what Xiao Yang has to face now is hundreds of semi-imperialist strong men. Even these imperialist strong men can't believe it. How can Xiao Yang deal with them? Meanwhile, Bai Ying and Sun Shuo, standing not far from Xiao Yang, can't help but change their faces slightly. Even these two people also didn't expect that Xiao Yang in front of them dared to say these words in front of everyone in the whole Hanshi city. Immediately, Sun Shuo's face couldn't help showing a sneer containing sarcasm. In Sun Shuo's opinion, Xiao Yang is only a 6-star-and-a-half emperor anyway. With this strength, he has repeatedly suppressed 2 9-star-and-a-half emperors. I think Xiao Yang at the moment is not as relaxed as it seems. However, now, he dares to say such boastful words, which is asking for trouble. As for Bai Ying, he doesn't know why. From the beginning, he has another thought about Xiao Yang. Although Xiao Yang's behavior seems to really mean that some mayflies shake the tree at the moment, Bai Ying still doesn't see any change in his face, just as he has the same confidence in Xiao Yang. This not only makes Xiao Yang feel confused. Bai Ying, what was the idea? Ha ha ha. Good. What a good Xiao Yang. He dares to speak so much about Yang when he is dying. Since you can't wait to die, what are you waiting for? Complete him and go together. As long as you can catch Xiao Yang to me, I will do everything my clan leader said just now. A cold laugh of disdain fell in his mouth, and Sun Shuo's fierce eyes swept over a group of semi-emperor strong people on the ground below. Suddenly, all the semi-emperor strong people who heard Sun Shuo's words immediately became hot. Looking at Xiao Yang's eyes, the previous color of fear was quickly replaced by greed. Poof! With the surging fighting spirit pouring out from the bodies of those semi-imperialist strong men, a powerful momentum quickly converged over the heads of the people. In the twinkling of an eye, over the whole Hanshi city, it was shrouded by an extremely powerful momentum. This momentum was gathered together by all the semi-imperialist strong men in the city. In front of this powerful momentum, even the faces of the several imperialist strong men far away could not help but change slightly. Although this momentum is not enough to compete with the momentum gathered by them, in this semi-imperial level, the momentum gathered by all the semi-imperial strong men in the city can definitely be called the most powerful momentum under the Do Emperor. Aware of this, the smile on Sun Shuo's face is even colder. Although they haven't really started yet, Sun Shuo seems to have seen Xiao Yang trampled under his feet, and bursts of cold hum from time to time. On the void, human figures swept up the sky like meteors. Immediately, with the momentum of encirclement, they surrounded Xiao Yang, who had scattered the diamond glass body at the moment, and a pair of sharp eyes fell on Xiao Yang. The color of greed in his eyes was self-evident, but at the same time, it was mixed with some fear. Like this, it looks like a group of hungry wolves are staring at a lion. Although they are afraid, their greedy heart is urging them to challenge their limits. In the face of more and more semi-imperialist strongmen around, Xiao Yang's face gradually changed color, a piece of ice cold. In a pair of dark eyes, gorgeous different fire kept rising. The heart read a move. In the middle of the eyebrows, the vast soul force swept out and quickly shrouded in this piece of heaven and earth. At this moment, the actions of every semi-emperor strong man in heaven and earth were clearly reflected in Xiao Yang's mind. Feeling the powerful momentum coming down from above, Xiao Yang was non-committal. As early as a few years ago, he had resisted the momentum of the strong fighting emperor. At the moment, the seemingly powerful momentum was not worth mentioning in front of Xiao Yang. Hum. A deep cold hum came out. Xiao Yanli's body in the void was suddenly shocked, and his mind was moved. The strength of Long Huang's blood hidden in the depths of Xiao Yang's body burst out. The purple-golden blood condensed into a purple-golden blood dragon in Xiao Yang's blood vessels. Immediately after that, it ran wildly in all Xiao Yang's blood vessels. At the same time, it also brought surging power. It was transported to Xiao Yang's limbs and bones. When the surging force poured into Xiao Yang's whole body, Xiao Yang immediately couldn't help but look up to the sky and send out a sky-shaking long roar. The sound was mixed with bursts of dragon chants, which made people feel trembling. At the same time, Xiao Yang's breath soared at the moment. In a twinkling of an eye, Xiao Yang's strength reached the middle stage of the 6-star-and-a-half emperor from the early stage of the 6-star-and-a-half emperor. This scene also shocked the hearts of people who were aware of this. Then, Xiao Yang's heart moved, and a more terrible momentum than the former suddenly burst out from Xiao Yang, rushed into the sky like an invisible dragon, and in the twinkling of an eye, suppressed the momentum gathered by hundreds of semi-imperialist strong men above his head. What? The appearance of this scene surprised all the people present at the moment. They screamed uncontrollably. At this moment, everyone in Hanshi City was deeply shocked. At this moment, everyone in heaven and earth is stunned, looking at Xiao Yang above the void. It's hard to imagine how powerful Xiao Yang is in front of him. Unexpectedly, even this terrible momentum can suppress it on his own. Is Xiao Yang really just a half-emperor? At this moment, even those who fought against the emperor were also surprised. As for Sun Shuo, the original grin on his face had already become as gloomy as a deep pool at the moment when Xiao Yang showed his strong strength. It's just momentum and pressure, but it doesn't prove anything. Let's go together. With the strength of so many of us, even if his combat strength is strong, he will eventually have the moment when his fighting spirit is exhausted. At that time, it will be the moment of his Xiao Yang's demise. Although Xiao Yang's momentum and authority are not weak, he still can't suppress the greed in the hearts of these semi-imperialist strongmen. For the second order pill, what they can do will be more crazy than you think. Even if they know that they are not Xiao Yang's opponent, having the second order pill in front is enough to push them to the blade. Sure enough, when the first cry fell, all kinds of shouting came one after another. In the twinkling of an eye, the atmosphere between heaven and earth became tense again. Hundreds of semi-imperial strongmen stared at Xiao Yang like greedy wolves. The fierce fighting spirit surged wildly on the body surface, and the columns of fighting spirit rose into the sky like a rainbow. Everyone's hands show their own weapons, or knives, or swords, and even some strange weapons that can't be named. But just like this, those things that don't seem to be Dao have become a sharp weapon for killing in the hands of these semi-imperial strongmen. With the outbreak of Xiao Yang's momentum, the atmosphere above the void became tense and quiet. No one chose to take the lead. Although they were only facing Xiao Yang, they seemed to be facing thousands of troops. Drink. Xiao Yang died. Until a moment, on the void, an old man holding a huge sword gave a sharp drink. The quiet and heavy atmosphere in the field was also announced to be broken at this moment. When the giant sword in his hand was waving, his body moved, and he instantly disappeared in front of the crowd, leaving an almost solid residual image in place. It didn't gradually disperse until a few breaths later. The next moment, the void in front of Xiao Yang suddenly twisted. The figure of the old man who had just disappeared in place appeared. At the same time, the huge sword in his hand was held high above the top, and the dazzling golden light burst out on the huge sword, like a bright sun, which makes people unable to open their eyes. Coronal sword. The golden light burst out, and the old man's mouth gave an earth-shaking fierce drink. The huge sword held high in his hand also fell mercilessly at this moment. The dazzling golden light with an incomparably fierce breath fell mercilessly to Xiao Yang in front of him. But the next moment, Xiao Yang's palm trembled slightly, and the dark black Shenchong ruler immediately fell into his hand. His heart was moved, and the gorgeous strange fire suddenly wrapped the giant ruler. 7 broken sky feet. 1 foot. A low cry came out in his heart, and the Shen heavy ruler wrapped by different fire in his hand was lifted up. Then the next moment, he collided with the oncoming golden giant sword. But before the end of the collision between the two, a series of human figures flashed rapidly around Xiao Yang, holding all kinds of weapons, showing their fighting skills and attacking Xiao Yang. Seeing this, Xiao Yang couldn't help but give a cold hum. His eyes were full of cold light, and his huge ruler flew around. In a twinkling of an eye, he waved a few feet continuously. 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet. The shrill cry continued to ring out in Xiao Yang's heart. Kai Mang shot and stopped all the strong emperors around him. But at the same time, a 9-star and a half-emperor among the people bypassed the Dao, Kai and Mang, passed through the crowd and came to Xiao Yang. As soon as his wrist turned, a black short dagger appeared between the 9-star and a half sleeves. The body twisted out of a very strange angle. The 9-star and half-emperor smoothly avoided Xiao Yang's sight and quickly approached Xiao Yang's body. The short dagger between his sleeves flashed slightly. Under the perfusion of fighting spirit, he attacked like a black snake and stabbed Xiao Yang's chest. Ding! However, the result was a very clear sound of gold and iron collision. At the same time, sparks burst out on Xiao Yang's chest, and the black robe on his body surface was torn to pieces, revealing Xiao Yang's body covered by purple and gold dragon scales. Seeing this scene, the 9-star and a half-emperor's heart was suddenly shocked. However, before his face changed, the giant ruler wrapped in fire had been pounded on his face. Bang! With a violent bang, the short dagger in the old man's hand immediately fell out of control. At the same time, The old man's body flew out of control, and blood splashed everywhere. Do you really think I didn't notice? Playing this hidden trick in front of the herbalist is really trying to die. With a faint cold hum in his mouth, Xiao Yang swept his eyes, and the half-emperor strong people around him had shouted to attack again. Seeing this, Xiao Yang narrowed his eyes, waved the giant ruler in his hand, and the soles of his feet stepped on the void. When his strength broke out, Xiao Yang's body also burst out suddenly. He rushed up with the giant ruler in his hand and a half of the strong imperialists coming up. Bang! 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 Compared with the old man before, Xiao Yang is more direct at the moment. When the giant ruler in his hand swings off, one foot will blow back a semi-imperial strongman, and then another semi-imperial strongman will follow up. Immediately, the same scene will appear on this void. Even in the face of two or more semi-emperors at the same time, Xiao Yang is also very overbearing. When his body shape is reversed, the Tianjue step under his feet is almost to the extreme. Before those semi-emperors can see Xiao Yang's body clearly, he has been blasted by the gorgeous giant ruler. After these semi-imperial strong men tried their best to pass their weapons through Xiao Yang's body, they found that their weapons were not stained with a trace of blood at all, and even Xiao Yang, who had just been penetrated by his weapons, dispersed quietly. Unexpectedly, while Xiao Yang kept falling under his giant feet, Xiao Yang, who was thought to have been hurt, was actually just his shadow. Under Xiao Yang's almost ghostly terror speed, Rao can't carry it several times with the strength of 9 stars and a half emperors. Hundreds of semi-imperialist strong men, who had thought about crushing, are now quite the opposite. 1 foot for one person, 1 foot for one person. At the moment, Xiao Yang is like an invincible god of war. Even if he is a 9-star and half emperor, he will also be defeated under Xiao Yang's giant ruler. In the twinkling of an eye, half of the hundreds of semi-imperialist strongmen in the field were injured by Xiao Yang with a heavy ruler. Until this moment, the people present gradually woke up. The actual strength of Xiao Yang in front of them is not what they can speculate. Now I'm afraid there will be no other people except those who can defeat Xiao Yang in the whole Hanshi city. Outside the battle circle, the strong men fighting the emperor looked stunned on their faces at the moment. Until a long time later, they couldn't help looking at each other. They thought of all the guesses about Xiao Yang in their hearts. At the moment, they couldn't help shaking their heads and smiling bitterly. On the other hand, Bai Ying and Sun Shuo were also extremely shocked. Especially Sun Shuo was shocked by Xiao Yang's amazing combat power. At the same time, an extremely resentful anger also surged up from the bottom of his heart. The bleak cold wind swept between heaven and earth. Over the head, the scorching sun looked very obvious. At this moment, it also looked very dark. The air is filled with a faint bitterness, which is not a real taste, but a mixture of despair in helplessness. This bitterness comes from the depths of people's heart, like despair and suspected panic. Between heaven and earth, countless desolate eyes stared at the black figure standing proudly between heaven and earth and the black ruler in their hands. Everyone's eyes are full of horror, fear, and despair. Who could have thought that a man who seemed to be the weakest among all the people in the world suppressed hundreds of semi-imperial strong men? Even if they tried their best, they still couldn't make waves in the eyes of the black-robed young man. Even though so many semi-imperial strong men have been defeated, at this moment, Xiao Yang still seems calm in his eyes. The current situation seems to belong to a reasonable thing. However, he did not know how shocking it was when all this was seen in the eyes of all the people in the city. Bang! With a twist of the wrist and a giant ruler sweeping across the room, a 9-star and a half emperor was mercilessly roared again by Xiao Yang in the field. At the same time, the 9-star and a half Earth's face had become white. After being hit hard, even if the 9-star and half emperor couldn't help spitting out a big mouthful of blood, at the same time, his body flew out uncontrollably at this moment. The original strong fighting spirit in his body was forcibly scattered under the giant ruler of Xiao Yang, and was no longer under his control in a short time. After finishing this, Xiao Yang slowly raised his eyes, and a gorgeous fire reflected in his dark eyes. When Xiao Yang's eyes swept over the only dozens of semi-emperor strong people around, everyone could not help but tremble and retreat quickly. However, anyone who was watched by Xiao Yang's eyes was quickly filled with a cold chill at the bottom of his heart. Gurgling cold sweat poured out from all over the body, and the fear in the heart was self-evident. At this moment, Xiao Yang in front of them seemed to be a god of killing. Even if he didn't really kill, under his overbearing and fierce authority, the dignity in the hearts of all the semi-imperialist strongmen present had been destroyed by him. Until this moment, Xiao Yang's tight body was slightly relaxed. Suddenly, A feeling of weakness immediately poured out from the depths of his body. Xiao Yang insisted on his face that had not changed for nearly an hour. Finally, at this moment, a touch of pallor poured into his face. For a long time at the peak, even if Xiao Yang's combat power becomes strong enough to make him suppress hundreds of semi-imperial strongmen present, however, after that, it will be a long trough. The appearance of this scene immediately caused a surge of joy in the hearts of all the semi-imperial strongmen present. They did not expect that Xiao Yang, who had been strong for an hour, would eventually have this weak moment. Ha ha. The opportunity has come. I thought this guy was really invincible. Originally, he just pretended to be strong. He pretended to be strong. Now it's time for us to finish you. Ha ha. Immediately, around Xiao Yang's body, dozens of semi-imperial strong men with fear suddenly appeared, a crazy meaning on their faces at the moment. The change of Xiao Yang's face seemed to let them see the dawn of victory. In a twinkling of an eye, the look on the faces of dozens of semi-emperor strong men immediately became excited. Together with the fighting spirit in his body, they became more turbulent at this moment. Ha. The boy is dying. Let's go together. As long as we continue to consume him for a moment, he will certainly become our prisoner. Ha. Second order pill. I can get second order pill right away. Ha. Xiao Yang, don't blame us for being too cruel. We don't care if we die accidentally. Ha. The sound of laughter fell one after another. Suddenly, on the void, some semi-imperial strong men who had planned to quit turned their eyes back again at this moment. Even those semi-imperial strong men who were bombed down by Xiao Yang with a mysterious heavy ruler, at this moment, they also jumped up from the ground one after another. Each strong body, their mind moved, and the fighting spirit in their body gushed out again. Between heaven and earth, sharp eyes shot at Xiao Yang one after another. Countless lines of sight were full of greed. The weapons in their hands reflected the cold luster under the sunlight. Unconsciously, even in the air, there was a faint smell of blood, as if an invisible fight was going on silently. Drink. Xiao Yang, die. Until a certain moment, a strong man whose strength reached the peak of the later period of the 8-star-and-a-half emperor suddenly moved, and a pair of machetes held in both hands immediately cut through the void. The light of the knife flew and slashed at Xiao Yang. After that, nearly 100 figures also swept their bodies one after another, and each one with a careful face shot at Xiao Yang quickly. When the weapon was wielded, countless fighting spirits crossed the void like a meteor. With the momentum of joint attack, they were hurling at Xiao Yang. At this moment, Xiao Yang, surrounded by the crowd, looked quiet on his face. There was no wave in a pair of dark eyes. In the depths of his eyes, the gorgeous fire gradually condensed into a flame wheel and slowly rotated. Immediately after that, Xiao Yang didn't pay attention to the hundreds of figures rushing towards him. On the contrary, his mind moved. The gorgeous fire puffed and rose in the palm of his hand. Immediately, with the change of Xiao Yang's mind, it quickly condensed in the palm of Xiao Yang's hand. At the same time, the fighting spirit in the cyclone in Xiao Yang's body also poured out of his body at this moment without money. It turned into a line of fire thick and thin enough for people's wrists, which wound around Xiao Yang's body and was worthy of the rapid gathering of the flame wheel in the palm of his hand. Then, when the countless fighting skills came within 10 feet of Xiao Yang's body, Xiao Yang's calm face suddenly became fierce. Immediately, his outstretched palm suddenly grasped the flame wheel that had not been completely condensed in his hand, and Xiao Yang held it in the palm of his hand. When Xiao Yang's mind moved, all the fighting spirit left in Xiao Yang's body gushed out of the palm and rushed into the flame wheel in Xiao Yang's hand. The next moment, when Xiao Yang slowly raised his eyes, his pale face became indifferent and even cold. At the same time, Xiao Yang's clenched palm slowly spread out, and a gorgeous flame wheel with the size of a palm appeared in Xiao Yang's palm. Buddha anger. Reincarnation. This video will end here.